historian in regards to UFOs and related phenomenon. He is the author of UFOs and the National Security State. Richard Dolan has a fresh overview of UFOs and related phenomenon, and he has insight about the future and the past. Thanks, Richard Dolan, for joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon.
Thanks, Blake. Appreciate being on the show.
All right, Richard, you wrote the book, UFOs and the National Security State, and you did investigations from 1947 to 1991 in regards to national security. What is the biggest secret in regards to national security and the U.S. that you could share with our viewers right now?
Well, yeah, actually my books cover from 1941, believe it or not, to 1991, and there will be a third volume that will take it from the early 90s to today. But in terms of like the top incidents dealing with national security, I think we have to go right to the immediate post-World War II era, where you could really see the military community getting very worked up over this. And that means 1947. And that probably means Roswell. You know, it's funny, even to this day, a lot of researchers will still argue over Roswell. Was it an actual crash of a UFO or not? I happen to think that it was. And I think that the Roswell event really was a very key moment in how the U.S. government tried to handle UFO secrecy. Because at this point, this is where we know pretty much for sure that they've come into their possession alien technology. Not just, in other words, knowledge that there's these other guys flying around in these flying saucers, but actually we got one of them and we got their stuff. And that takes the cover up to a completely different level, because you don't want to share technology with the rest of the world. You don't want to share it with the Soviet Union. So you have to keep it ultra, ultra, ultra secret. So the cover up goes very deep at that point. So I would say Roswell is a very key moment. I would also say that a little known year in all of this is 1950. 1950, there just happened to be a huge number of military encounters with UFOs. It seems to me, looking back on that whole period, that it got a lot of very high-level attention. You have U.S. Air Force, you have FBI, you have all the other military branches getting very worked up over airspace violations. You got these exotic objects, they don't look normal, they don't act normally, and they're hanging out over sensitive installations, Los Alamos, other nuclear facilities as well. Anyone who's got any sense of responsibility is going to want to know, what are these things? What the hell is flying over our airspace? Another year would be 1952, even a bigger year than 1950. There were moments in the 1960s as well where this became a very, very big moment. 1966, long after the Air Force thought they'd put this whole matter to sleep as far as the public was concerned, UFOs come back. They're being discussed on the floor of Congress. Gerald Ford, member of Congress, says, "I'm not satisfied with the answers the Air Force is giving us." And this became a very, very big thing. And it ended up as a big crescendo by the end of the 60s. The Air Force, masterstroke by the Air Force. They hired the University of Colorado to basically debunk UFOs scientifically. So there are all of these turning points in the history, and they didn't stop. I mean, there are moments that have continued right on through the rest of the 20th century into our own era. I feel like I'd be boring you guys to death if I just gave a litany. We had the Freedom of Information Act era in the 70s. You know, just when you thought UFOs were going to go away after the closing of Project Blue Book, Freedom of Information Act, researchers shake the tree, they get documents coming out of the government thinking, oh wow, there really was a cover-up after all. And on it goes. It's a fascinating history.
Richard, you've been quoted as 5 minutes to midnight, disclosure will happen. Do you have any idea when disclosure will be revealed?
Yeah, I'm not really sure if that's my quote. I think that might be my friend and colleague Stephen Bassett. However, it's something I suppose I might have said in a certain mood. I've often felt disclosure is a paradox. Disclosure is impossible. Disclosure is inevitable. It's really both. I've always said this. It's impossible because those people who have the secret have no incentive ever for giving it up, not as I can see. But it's inevitable because, frankly, they're not the only game in town. They're not the only factor of the equation. There's us, our society. We're changing at such a radical rate, so rapidly. So I think disclosure will happen. I think it will be within our lifetimes. But I would not be so presumptuous as to assume that I really know when it's going to happen. If I were to guess, I'd say 10 years is possible. I mean, hell, tomorrow is possible, though I think unlikely. The reason I think it's going to happen is very simple. This isn't 1990, it's not 1980 anymore. We're in a completely different era. We can communicate with each other globally in ways that just were not ever conceivable in the past. I mean, I'm talking to you on perfect video on Skype. Even 5 years ago, well, it was, a little more than 5 years ago, that was really not easy to do. Hasn't been that long. So basically everyone today can communicate with everyone. And what I think is going to happen is either some mass sighting that is multiply recorded on lots of good mobile devices, and we're seeing this more and more. It actually is happening. One of these is going to be a breakthrough case, I think. Or something like a WikiLeaks phenomenon will occur. That is, a leak will be wrenched out of some government archive. WikiLeaks didn't exist 10 years ago either, because it couldn't exist 10 years ago. We didn't have the global infrastructure. Well, now we do. So I think, we're really on the cusp of something unexpected happening that's going to force this secret open. I don't believe it's going to happen through any kind of plan by any kind of government, certainly not the United States, which has done nothing but lie on this and so many other things for an entire lifetime. But it'll happen because it's forced down. I'll just add, once that secret is out, that does not mean that the CIA and the FBI and all these agencies are just going to walk away from the table. They're going to try to control this even then. They're going to try to control the spin. So disclosure is not the end of the battle for truth. Disclosure really will be the battle of the new phase of a battle for truth. And the government's going to continue to lie. We know this is going to happen, and it'll be up to us, public, to force as much openness and truth on this as we can.
Secret conspiracies cover up possible alien agendas. Are you aware of how many, alien-type beings exist on the planet Earth today through your research?
I have no way of knowing that exactly. Some people have their own number, whether it's 70 or 50 this or that, or 17, who knows? No one really knows. What I can tell you is when I look at the data of individuals who have claimed to have had encounters with other beings. Okay, if you do that, we have to keep in mind something, all right? Memories can be tampered with, can be managed, and can even be erased. And we know this because if someone has what seems like an abduction experience, for example, frequently they can't remember it for years. Whoever these other beings are, they've got the ability to repress your memory, and they have the ability to put in screen memories. People who claim to remember a big owl during this weird encounter. Well, that's a screen memory. So in other words, we don't really know how accurate these recollections are of the physical nature of these beings. You've got all kinds of variations of the so-called grays. Are they real variations, or are they only variations in the mind? Same thing with these different types of reptoid types of descriptions, or insect-like beings. So we don't really know. What I would say is that there are general beings that we would call the grays. Short, big head, big black eyes. I think they exist. You've got beings that are consistently described as reptoid. You have beings that are consistently described as insect-like. You have beings that are totally human-looking, but they're not like you and me. They're not like you and me. So that's 4 basic typologies right there. Are there more types than that? I'm guessing the answer is yes, because my assumption is that these are genetically modified, artificially created entities anyway.
I've heard, and theories around the internet have obviously said that these hybrids are looking more and more human-like over the years. Can you tell us what is the reason for this, and what is their intention?
People have asked me that question for years, for many, many years. Do you think they're walking around among us? Are hybrids walking around among us? And I used to love that question because it always made me feel sane when I said, absolutely not. There's no evidence whatsoever that they're walking among us. And I felt good, and I felt like I could actually say no to something. Now, having spent since 2003 investigating this subject of just that point, I can say that my defense has been stripped away. I can't feel sane anymore. I have to I'm all in with this in a sense. And the evidence has now pushed me to the situation, to the position where I think that this is an infiltration program, an integration program into the society, and it started maybe 10 years ago, something that these beings have called the change, and they've been calling it that for many years. And I think the change has happened, and that there are hybrids who look quite human, who are now integrating into the society. In fact, that's what my next book will be on, which I'm still working on. And it's about the processes and the bureaucracy involved with integrating into the society. I used to think, well, we'll just wake up one day and then they'll be here, you know. It's not like that. It's much more complex. And there is a technique that is involved that uses abductees and uses advanced people, and there's a bureaucracy all the way up into the alien world. And that's what my next book will be on. I've been threatening to write this book forever, and I'm on the last chapter now, and it's still got to be revised about 500 times, and then it'll finally be ready to be turned down by every publisher in the United States.
We at Third Phase of Moon, we receive about 150,000 views a day. We get a lot of comments and questions in regards to any kind of physical evidence. Over the years, have you come across anything that you might want to share with our YouTube viewers watching right now?
The problem of evidence is always difficult. We don't have an alien ashtray that says made on Mars underneath it. We wish we did have that. We don't have alien screwdrivers or things like that. Nor do we have a whole heck of a lot of alien DNA. But in fact, Bill Chalker in Australia has produced a hair of a hybrid, perhaps, that shows very unusual DNA and genetic markers in it, and suggests a very, very, very unusual type of being, of human, could have shed that hair. I have a hair also that has not been analyzed by anybody, although I once tried to get it, but with no luck. I'm going to have to spend money to try to do it, and there's no guarantees that it'll show anything, to tell you the truth. But the evidence ultimately is anecdotal. The evidence is that all sorts of people around the world, regardless of their background, regardless of their economic status or their geographic status or their educational level or their religion or their race or their ethnicity, regardless of anything, all say the same things in exactly the same way that is absolutely sort of mind-boggling in its scope and detail. Not only that, but high-functioning people, that is people with PhDs and LLDs and MDs and so forth, people who are CEOs of organizations, also say the same things, and they know that saying that is directly against their own self-interest. You cannot say, I'm being abducted on a regular basis by aliens from another planet or universe or wherever, and expect to be taken seriously. Well, let me just say that people are abducted in groups as well. People see them being abducted from time to time, although it is rare, and are not abducted themselves. People see them being abducted, and they are abducted themselves, like family members, or people all together in a car, and they can confirm each other's abduction. And people return with unusual, fully formed scars on their bodies, scars that were not there the day before, and I can absolutely 100% attest to that. I have seen that with my own eyes, so to speak, and consequently, there is physical evidence, and you have to put them together, and you realize this is something that's either psychologically generated, it comes out of a person's mind, or it's happening. And the evidence for it being psychologically generated is exceptionally weak to even build it up from that. It's virtually non-existent. And consequently, you have to go with the other hypothesis that this is actually happening to them.
Dr. Jacobs, I really want to thank you for joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon. It's been a pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure. I wish I could have expounded more and more until everybody is bored to death with it, but I do the best I can.
We look forward in the future, if you have any more information in regards to UFOs and the hypnotic regression with these sessions that you have, you come to us at Third Phase of Moon and share it with us, right?
It's a deal.
Do you believe, and have the men in black been following you around, that they are possible ETs themselves or are using ET technology?
I've not been followed by anything that resembles a Men in Black. I have been followed by Black Ops and got into a fight with something, with some Black Ops. But if anything showed up at our door that resembled a Men in Black, we'd clock him over the head and hide him in our basement.
When you were abducted in this incredible story, you explained that you were found with a nightgown on of some kind, and rumor is that it could have been Betty Hill's nightgown.
How can people make this stuff up? How in the world and why would people make this stuff up? The times, and again, I think they do it to try to prove a point. Or maybe they just laugh at me because I freak out so bad. I've been left on the roof butt naked. I've been left outside with the slide bolts locked inside. I've come back one time after an experience, pretty intense experience. I came back in a woman's nightgown. They stuffed me in the wrong clothing. And my wife thinks this is the funniest damn thing. True story. I went to bed wearing a shirt that I got for my bachelor party. My friend had it made, and it said, "I've been abducted by aliens, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt." I went to bed with that shirt on. I woke up in a woman's nightgown, and that shirt was missing. And so, whoever ended up with that, could you imagine being taken and, they put the wrong clothes on and you get that shirt, you wake up next to your husband and you have some guy's shirt that says that? You can't tell me they don't have a sense of humor.
Stan, how can you get your evidence to the U.S. government and get disclosure? And if they won't give it to us, will you go to other countries with your evidence and see if they might help and disclose what they have?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know. Ex-ministers of defense. Some of the people working on my case are ex-naval intelligence. I have a friend who's, ex-NSA, very close friend. These are all very enlightened people. They've had experiences and they switched to the light, not the dark.
We have over 37,000 subscribers and we're hit about 150,000 hits a day, about 3.5 million times a month. What do you think our viewers could do to help get the word out?
Just really, it's kind of pay it forward. Believe that there is stuff out there because there truly is. Whoever these guys, you gotta understand, the government, the secret government, I don't think it's necessarily the government. I'm gonna say maybe a secret government. They have a vested interest in keeping this quiet because if we find out the truth, then they lose power. Then they don't matter anymore. Honestly, knowing that we are not the only ones is the biggest thing in the history of mankind. And so, that's what this is about. That's why I do what I do, because it's that important.
Did you hear just recently that NASA in the next week or two is going to make a major announcement in regards to the red planet and findings with Curiosity? And they say it's going to change the history books. What do you think about this?
I'm sure they're going to think it's going to change. I think they're going to finally admit there's microscopic life on Mars. Other than that, I have no idea.
Stan, in your encounters and abductions, do you think they've given you the power of telekinesis or, telepathic abilities? Did they wake up the part of the brain that allows you to possibly do this?
One thing I've been told to be careful about with this global elite, they're all about control. They use fear to control us. If you can change quantum reality naturally, then how do you control somebody with that kind of power? Well, you make them fearful, and because they manifest what they believe, they will self-govern. They will control themselves through fear. So from what I understand, there is a possibility that the government is gearing up to scare the crap out of people into believing we are being attacked by off-world beings, when that might not be the case. Also, that being said, you know, there's good and bad out there just like there's good and bad here. But really, if they wanted to take us out, they've been here for thousands of years, they could have done so a long time ago.
Stanton, can you explain and tell our viewers what you're working on next and what kind of books you're going to be releasing in the future?
Okay, I've got 3 books. My first book, Messages, is an international best-selling book. It kind of gives you the story of my family involvement with the military, how it kind of all started with me, and you know, some of the stuff that happened. The next book, I had when I started having these regressions, some bizarre stuff started happening. I was not myself. It took me a lot of coaxing to put this, because I really don't believe in this stuff, but it took a lot of coaxing by friends and family to put this stuff in a book. But there's some amazing information in the Orion transcripts from my regressions. But the most recent book, Answers, really, I mean, it's about what I've learned. It's about what they're trying to tell us, at least the good guys are trying to tell us. And it talks about timeline. We're living in an altered timeline. It talks about the timeline wars. It talks about all these stuff that are happening to us as humans, and kind of explains who humans really are. And more than that, there is going to be, you know, I'm constantly doing conferences. I'm going to be at the UFO Congress selling books. I'm happy to say I don't have to speak this year because I always speak there. I get to relax and just talk to people and sell my books at the UFO Congress in February. But in August of 2000, no, this is in 2013, and I have some other stuff coming up, but August 2013, I am going to be speaking at a conference, Spirits and Shadows conference in Edinburgh, Scotland. This is the largest conference of its type ever in the history of mankind. We have over 65 speakers, and it's growing over a 7-day period. It's amazing. Everything from cryptozoologists to paranormal investigators to UFOs to spiritual people to everything. We're going to have sky watches. There's going to be investigations of very haunted places. I gave you guys the website to this. And if you want to find out what I'm doing, you could go to my website, stanromenic.com, and or my wife's website, lisaromenic.com. She just wrote an amazing book called From My Side of the Bed. Amazing book.
All right, Stan, I really want to thank you for joining us right here on Third Phase of Moon with your incredible insight and the UFO sightings happening around the world.